important. Of course it is. But answer my question though. Should we let people go? Should we let people go? Like, let's just forget about bail altogether. And if your neighbor commits a homicide and kills people, if you kill people and they next to you and you just let them come back and live right next to you, they can live upstairs from you. Let them come in your house.
This is The Truth in the Afternoon with Dr. Ken Harris on 1017 The Truth and The Truth app.
Now, he's the mayor of the city of Milwaukee. He's a young man. Give him a chance. I only complain about things that I care about. What I want you to do is pretend like I'm in St. Louis. And all I'm asking the mayor and the common council president and the common council, show me.
Now, live from the American Family Insurance Studio in Milwaukee, here is Dr. Ken Harris.
You're listening to Truth in the Afternoon. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Harris. It is Friday, February 16th, 2022. So I've been thinking kind of the same theme all week. I've been thinking kind of the same thing. Like, why is the city the way that it is? And I've been giving that a lot of thought. And I've been talking about in recent weeks, recent months, that the civil rights movement, all these things that have happened over time, and times have changed in the 60s, and drugs and Vietnam and all this, and we came through. So the reason it's like this is because of this and all that, right? And then I had an epiphany because I heard a statement made and I forget where it came from. So my apologies. But I have a bit of a rendition on it. But I now understand why the city is out of control. I understand why we have a generation of people who seemingly don't want to do anything. A generation where people don't want to pass anything on, right? I mean, baby boomer, silent generation, baby boomer, Gen X, millennial, and Gen Z, who, for all intent and purpose, are many baby boomers, right? I was listening to an audiobook and it clicked and it explained why people are the way they are. And when I started to look, and I was also listening to an audiobook that talked about, if you're familiar with finance, you know who the Brown Brothers Harriman are. It's a huge financial firm on Wall Street, like Goldman Sachs and all that. Lehman Brothers, who went out of business and all that. But I used to wonder, how did the Fords pass money on from generation to generation to generation to generation and keep it moving? How did the Rockefellers have 15 different generations all over and what's a sub generation? First and second and third cousins. But once a year, the whole family comes together and they figure out who's going to handle what and do what throughout the entire world as it relates to their money, how they're going to pass it on to other generations. But in the 70s and 80s, we made it. We benefited from civil rights. We benefited. We went to school. We went to law school. We still got people complaining that Harvard is putting in, they're putting black and brown people in and they're not letting Asian people in. We're still telling that story, whether it's true or not, we're still telling that story. But then it dawned on me, there's only one reason why the city is the way it is. There were hard times from slavery till the 1960s and 70s. And in the 60s and 70s, people started to work and understood what labor was about, what education was about. And those hard times created strong men. And those strong men made sure their families, their wives, their children their cousins, their nieces, their nephews, their brothers, their sisters were taken care of, went to school, took care of the neighborhood, took care of the family. And that begot easy times. So when you hear about people working in the 80s and 90s and working at A.O. Smith and working at Miller and working at all these companies around the city and state, what's the other manufacturer that makes the engines, right? All these places, Johnson Controls, Rockwell, Northwestern Mutual, all these companies that make Briggs and Stratton, all these companies that make great things through the late 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. That's where we became middle class and created easy times. But what we found in the late 90s, 2000s, 2010s, that easy times create weak men. And so because you have it easy, hey, that's where we got helicopter parents from. And now we have lawnmower parents. Forget the helicopter where I tell you where to go or where the bump is smaller. We got lawnmower parents where they mow, where they just move stuff out your way, where everything is smooth. And that's what created weak men and women. And so now we have a conundrum in the community. There are no hard times in the community. I mean, if you really, really want to look at hard times, having electric and gas and a big screen TV in a car and living in poverty is not my idea of poverty. No car, one TV. The other TV needed a hanger for the antenna, and that was it. We didn't have a car. We took public transportation everywhere. So what do I leave you with? Something to remember. As you're raising your children, as you're raising your family, some of the things that you do will have a detrimental effect on the future of this city. So what we're living in now, the recession, what we're living in now, high prices, what we're living in now, high interest rates, what we're living in now, too much money to buy a house, buy a car, when electric cars are averaging like $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, but yet we're spending $78 million to put in electric terminals to charge a car that nobody in the city can afford. We're in a time where men are weak. So the easiest way to say all of this is that hard times create strong men create easy times create weak men. And weak men is what we have today. And that brought about hard times.
And that is Dr. Ken's Truth on the new 1017 The Truth.
This is 1017 The Truth's DZ, and I am Milwaukee.